Killzone Shadowfall is, as of writing this, the last mainline entry of the Killzone franchise, serving as a sort of narrative epilogue to the events of the Killzone trilogy. It's also the one I've been getting told was the absolute worst that the franchise had to offer for roughly a decade, and up until I played it for this video, I wouldn't have known otherwise. I need to just say this right now and get it out of the way. Shadowfall is not the worst game in the series. It's just not. In fact, it's actually better than the rest of the games in a lot of ways. It has the best gunplay by far, better movement, better level design, better writing, more immersion, less yappy cutscenes, more bombastic set pieces. It's just better. The only two major negatives weighing it down are the ending and the multiplayer mode, which, yeah, I can see why those two aspects would have soured people on the experience a bit, but before I get into all of that, let's talk a little more about what Shadowfall is. Up until this point, the Killzone games were all being built on a sort of unnamed proprietary patchwork engine designed by the devs at Guerrilla Games. But for the development of Shadowfall, they finalized a true video game engine for use in their future games, and it's what we now know as the Decima engine. This was the same engine that powered both the choice-based horror game Until Dawn and, of course, Hideo Kojima's beautiful Death Stranding. After Guerrilla Games finished up development, Killzone Shadowfall launched on November 13th, 2013, alongside the release of the Sony PlayStation 4, making it a launch title for the system. This is where it remains to this day because once again, Guerrilla and Sony refuse to break the shackles that confine this franchise to console exclusivity even this long after they've already released. Just hear me out here, Sony. Killzone the Hellgast Collection. Include all 6 games, drop it on PC for $69.99, and watch the money flow. Anyway, let's set up the story a little bit here. At the end of Killzone 3, our quirky band of lovable misfits did a little trolling and, annihilated the mass majority of the Helgen population by firing a nuclear missile into a Petrocyte superweapon, blowing it up, and coating their homeworld in a radioactively lethal element. This event is now referred to in-universe as the Terracide, which is actually a horrific name given it basically means planetary genocide. Also, I gotta say that, wow, this game looks good. As if to further cement this franchise's odd tendency towards bi-entry tonal whiplash, Shadowfall is back to the grim, hyper-serious tone of the second game, completely abandoning the plucky one-liner Saturday morning cartoon tone of both the first game and its own direct predecessor, the third game. We are moving into the future now, and following the devastating cleansing of the planet Helgen at the hands of the ISA, however justified it may have been to prevent a potential terracide of Earth as was planned in the third game by Chairman Johann Stahl, the Vectan government has agreed to section off a portion of the planet Vecta for the Hellgast refugees to come down and inhabit. A large border wall is constructed to separate the two peoples due to their inability to peacefully coexist, and the Helgen government is quickly re-established with Lady Hera Visari, the daughter of the now-deceased scholar Visari, reigning as the new chancellor of the Helgen Empire. A sector of the Vectan capital city is then given over to the Hellgast refugees and called New Helgen. These Helgen refugees do not assimilate into the Vectan way of living, and instead bring with them their own culture, traditions, and beliefs. That isn't enough, of course, because the Hellgast already blamed the ISA for exiling their people to the incredibly hostile planet Helgen to die several generations ago. I mean, that resentment is what launched this war back in the first game, but now that same planet that they had once adapted to has become completely obliterated, with large swaths of its surface being rendered completely uninhabitable. So now the Hellgast and Vectan humans once again share the same planet, and to say tensions are high would be an understatement. It only takes a few years of this attempt at coexistence before the Hellgast decide they want a total removal of all Vectans from the part of the city that has been given over to them, and a forced relocation of all Vectans out of New Helgen over the wall and back into the Vectan half of the city then begins. This relocation is where we come in, assuming the role of our new protagonist, who is only 5 years old. The first mission opens on a young Lucas looking out a window to see a group of Vectans being forcibly escorted out of the New Helgen zone of the city. Our father walks in and begins packing up a few necessary belongings before addressing us directly.
Listen, I know this is tough, but we don't have a choice. We have to get to the wall. We'll be safe on the other side. I'm gonna look out for you. I need you to do the same for me, okay? You're gonna be my second in command. Let's go.
Of course, the situation is escalating as the Hellgast are literally banging on the front door. Alright, well, we're out of here. As you can see, Shadowfall is, by far, the best looking Killzone game of the series, and it's not even close. We start descending down to lower level balconies, and the game tries to show off its new face tech gear, which is very impressive for 2013, but also a little bit weird to look at here for some reason. A little uncanny. He tells us that we'll be back once Vectans can reclaim their home, and that it will always be their home, and to never forget that. From here, the game breaks into a sort of stealth section. It's very linear, but I think it gets the point across. We're running from cover to cover trying to avoid spotlights from Helghast dropships and the like. Before too long, we come across an ISA soldier of sorts hiding behind some rubble as he and our father await their next move. The three of us remain in cover until a squad of Helghast pass by overhead without seeing us. The ISA soldier then begins leading the way forward. Also, what company would name their product this on purpose?
Is this your kid?
I'm taking him to the wall.
Looks like you're gonna need some help.
You're a Shadow Marshal, aren't you? Why are the Helghast doing this to us? There was an agreement. We were guaranteed safe passage out of
Hey,
here.
buddy, I don't like it any more than you do. But until you get to the wall, it's their rules. Like I said, you're gonna need some help.
You can get us to the wall? Safely?
Look, the south crossing is closed, so we're gonna have to take the long way around. We've wasted enough time here already.
What's your name?
Sinclair.
I'm Michael Killen. This is my son, Lucas. We're gonna go back outside. I want you to stay close to me and don't make any noise, okay? You're doing great. I'm trusting you.
Dad's a smart man, kid. Let's go.
A Shadow Marshal. Now that's interesting. We haven't heard of a Shadow Marshal since way back in the original Killzone. The character Luger, whom we played as for a few missions, was also a Shadow Marshal, so this marks the concept's return since that game. Unless you count Liberation, that is. Coming upon a locked door, Sinclair and our father ask us to climb up onto the roof and slip through an opening to unlock the door from the other side, since we're the only one who can fit.
Once you get up there, I want you to stay out of sight, and I want you to go straight for the hole, okay?
Sure. Clambering up onto the roof, we quickly find our way inside and remove the board blocking the door and keeping us from progressing. Shortly after that, we're almost spotted before we have to keep moving. The situation continues to escalate as two Helghast soldiers walk onto the deck in front of us. Not wanting his 5-year-old to see someone be killed, our dad volunteers to stun the soldier instead of letting Sinclair kill him. Once this is done and the soldier is out of commission, Sinclair approaches the stunned man and promptly executes him on the spot.
What are you doing?
Take no chances.
No, I didn't sign up for this.
You signed up for my help. This is it. Worry about your conscience when we're on the other side. Come on, we're not far from the wall.
Well, that's probably going to traumatize the poor kid for a while. Not that we have much choice but to move on since the city is literally on fire right now, and man is it breathtaking to look at. Almost too breathtaking. While I'm on this mission, I feel like I should go ahead and show this footage of my poor PS4 sounding like it's ascending into the next realm while trying to run this game. I was genuinely worried for the first couple of hours while playing this that my PS4 was on the verge of its swan song. Eventually, I just tuned it out and played the game anyway. While trying to escape, we got spotted by a Helghast drone and... No!
Targets apprehended.
Lucas, stay behind me. Wait. We were promised safe passage. Please, got my son with me. We're unarmed. Hey, stop! You can't do this. This is our home too!
No! What's wrong with him? Why isn't he moving?
Damn it.
What's gonna happen to me?
No, looks like you're gonna have to stick with me, kid. Come on.
Well, that's definitely gonna traumatize him for life. Just watched his father get murdered in front of him and is now being carried out on a stranger's back.
Well done, Lucas. You're the youngest cadet ever to be admitted to the Shadow Marshal Academy. You should be proud. I know if your father was here, he'd feel the same way. All our people want is to be kept safe. That means taking the fight to the Helghast. It means crossing the wall. No matter what they do. Still Vecta over there. One day you're gonna get it back. For all of us. The Shadow Marshal program is honored to have you, Lucas. You know where you have to go. And you know what happens if you get caught. You're let out, on a wall in chains, with the back over your head. Paraded, or mocked, and then executed.
So yeah, we fast forwarded 20 years later, making our hero, Lucas Kellen, roughly 27 years old now, and it looks like things aren't looking so hot for him. We're escorted out and a bag is ripped off of our head as a Helghast soldier tells us how humiliating it is to them that they're forced to live alongside the people who destroyed their own planet like this. He's bitter that people like Lucas seem to judge him and his people as if they are criminals despite them having had their planet destroyed. He then tells Lucas that before long they'll stage an assault on the whole city and take it all over for Helghast rule.
Try it. It won't be as easy as the last time.
There seems to be some sort of prisoner exchange happening here right now. I really appreciate how the game is dropping us into such a wild scenario right from the get-go. How did we get here? Doesn't matter. We're here and being exchanged for a different prisoner to get us out. Speaking of, remember that character in front of us for later. She's very important. Before things can go as planned, the whole operation goes up in smoke as shots begin going off. Seems like these exchanges rarely go as planned, doesn't it? Despite this grown 6-foot-plus athletic man grabbing the weapon first, the slowest and most telegraphed of punches from this girl half his size knocks him to the ground, allowing her to snatch the weapon off of him. Our character is supposed to be an expert in close quarters combat, by the way. She looks at us for a few seconds, staring down at Lucas before finally pulling the trigger. Luckily for Lucas, the weapon was empty, and so he lives to see another day. After that, we're helped up by an ISA soldier and pulled from the fray. The scene then cuts to our first real display of Vecta City, the capital of the planet Vecta. And I gotta admit, it's visually incredible. This is one of the very few scenes in the game that takes us out of the first-person perspective of the main character and acts as a real cutscene, and is, coincidentally, the title card sequence as well. Beautiful. Simply gorgeous. For nearly the entirety of Shadowfall's runtime, the game never leaves the first-person perspective of our player character, Lucas Kellen, with every event taking place exclusively from behind the eyes of the protagonist rather than moving between gameplay and cinematic cutscenes as previous entries have done. There's only 2 or 3 exceptions to this throughout the game. I don't usually have a preference on which style is better. I like both in their own ways depending on how it's handled, but for Shadowfall, I think the decision to ditch traditional cutscenes and keep the game entirely in a first-person perspective was absolutely the right one. We fade back into the eyes of Lucas Kellen as he approaches the Shadow Marshal who rescued him from New Helghan 20 years ago. They seemingly have a sort of father-son relationship going on here now. The two talk about why Lucas was captured, and it was apparently a choice Lucas made in order to save a platoon of ISA soldiers who may have been killed otherwise. Sinclair here informs Lucas that the woman they traded for his release was codenamed Echo, a special operative for the Helghast. He then shows us a news broadcast from the current Helghast Chancellor, Helena Vasari, talking about how negotiations between the two governments are breaking down at a rapid pace. Sinclair and Lucas are unfazed by this development. There's a cold war going on right now between two governments barely sharing a planet together while both peoples seemingly loathe every aspect of the other. Things are tense. Sinclair is sending us back over the wall into New Helghan to locate and retrieve a downed ISA ship that may contain evidence of intentional Helghast movements against the Vectan government. However, if the Helghast are able to collect those ISA soldiers or the downed ship itself, it could be very bad since the ISA's presence over the wall is against the treaty and would implicate them. So our being a Shadow Marshal, we're being sent in to destroy the evidence of ISA involvement and get our soldiers out of there. So we're dropped into a factory near where the ship is, but sneaking over to said ship is going to be the hard part. And would you believe that only just now is where we can actually start playing the game? I'm a little torn on this fact because on the one hand, I love convoluted, overly eco-political shadow op stories like this, and it takes a lot to set them up right. On the other, I'm not sure it should take us 20 minutes of real-time gameplay to actually start playing the game. The game uses this area to familiarize us with a few new mechanics, such as the improved movement mechanics. The movement in Killzone games has never been very good. It was awful in the first game, tolerable in the second, and acceptable in the third. Here, however, it's actually pretty good. Moving and platforming feels really smooth and responsive, which is good because a lot of this game is dependent on enjoying how it feels to move around the environment. In this vent we're sneaking through, we find one of Shadowfall's new collectible items, a comic book page. I adore this. This is one of the most fun collectibles I've ever seen in a game. It's an in-universe comic where you learn more about this little plot line as you collect pages throughout the game. I found myself actively looking for these pages just because I wanted to see more of this dark art style and story. I'll talk more in depth about this comic book later. You'll notice the lack of combat so far. This isn't because the game isn't combat heavy, it very much is, but rather because Shadowfall brings in a much heavier emphasis on stealth than previous entries have, opting to fully commit to it as a fleshed out mechanic, complete with an echo mechanic that allows you to detect enemies through walls so you can plan your movements. If you overuse it though, it'll overload and beep, thereby alerting enemies to your presence. Additionally, we have other staples like avoiding cameras and drop execution animations. Now, I love a good stealth game, so this was a very welcome addition in my opinion, and it totally fit with the Shadow Marshal character we're inhabiting here. Something else I really appreciated about this level is the attention to detail. I mean, look at these authoritarian propaganda signs they have on the wall. Small details like this do so much to solidify the immersion and help build the world we're living in. Also, I love it when games let me do double kill animations like this. Now, believe it or not, this mission ended up being one of the longest ones in the game because it's one of the least linear and allows for significantly more agency of player choice than most of the later levels. So between that and covering all of the new mechanics introduced here, I'll be giving this mission a bit more time than most of the others. Speaking of new mechanics...
Hostile!
That is our Owl, a small allied drone that offers multiple different functionalities to aid Lucas in combat. The Owl had 4 capabilities to take advantage of: a direct attack mode with its attached minigun, a zip line to cross small chasms and gaps, a stun mode to zap an opponent who might be hiding behind a shield or something, and a shield to offer you cover in a tight spot when you're caught out in the open. I thought this was gimmicky at first, but trust me, the Owl ended up being a brilliant addition to the game's combat flow that helps the game stand out from other shooters in a big way. That sequence right there should tell you everything you need to know about whether or not you'd enjoy this game. This is where the game really opens up for the first time too, and although most of the levels are really great, this ended up being one of my favorite sequences available. That large area of trees connecting to that massive statue is our small playground here. We descend down this scaffolding doing a bit of platforming, which again is surprisingly smooth, before utilizing our Owl droid to zipline the rest of the way down. I mean, this is awesome. I was really starting to see the potential of this game at this point, climbing up this tower and putting a knife through this Helghast soldier before taking out his friend right after. Reinforcements were then called in and I had to pick up the pace and zipline to another tower. We then have our Owl disable the alarm tower and clear out the remaining soldiers. That's when I stumbled upon a surprisingly interesting NPC conversation between 2 Helghast discussing the potential war.
Do you have any idea what it's like to lose a child, kid? No, you don't. There are endless nights where my wife sleeps in my daughter's empty bed. To be closer to her, to remember her, is to honor someone. So don't talk to me about that. And then what? So we win? We defeat Vector? What then? What do we do with the scores of civilians remaining? It has everything to do with it. Think of all the civilians lost. The decimation, for no reason at all. Yes, but do we really need victory? Are we not fine the way we are? I'm not just saying we shouldn't go to war if it's necessary. What I'm saying is we shouldn't start the war. Think of all the thousands of people whose families will be killed. Think of all of them.
Ignoring the glitched soldier who's stuck in the wall, this dialogue had me second guessing that my job required me to kill that guy. knowing his wife was home alone in the empty bed of her dead daughter and now she'd attend the funeral of her dead husband? Reminder, we're not even at war here. Damn, dude, what happened to making light of everything like the first and third game? This is intense, and it's not even the last time this game had me second guessing the NPCs I was killing either. Like, Shadowfall wants you to realize what you're doing here. This is a step beyond how serious Killzone 2 was, and I actually like it. It's emphasizing that your enemies aren't evil creatures grown from the dirt yesterday filled with nothing but pure malice. They're living beings with emotions, families, and dreams. The crash site isn't far from here, and it's not long before we find the ship with a few soldiers guarding it. Now, we could always go in blasting, stir up some trouble, and get it done, but I've been doing that for 3 Killzone games already, so let's try to play with the stealth at least a little bit more. We've got our orders to find and rescue the crew, then destroy the remains of this ship, so these guys unfortunately have to die. Now you'll see how my weapon transforms. That's a special mechanic to this rifle that turns it from a full auto submachine gun into a long-range sniper rifle, and it's one of my favorite guns in the game. The crew from the ship are alive, and they've taken refuge in the bottom of this dilapidated building, which means we're making our way through this underground tunnel until we find them. Once we do manage to locate them, they hand over the intel that caused all of this, which is good news. With the data secured and the crew located, all that's left to do is destroy the ship wreckage and get these guys out of here. So let's just slap a charge on the hull and let that sit there until we're ready to blow the place. There's an AA cannon still active in the area though, which is the exact reason we ended up here to begin with. So before we can call for evac, we'll need to do something about that cannon. All of these objectives are scattered around one large area, and we have to traverse across this small hub to get to them, which I really love. It makes it even more of a shame though that this idea doesn't really ever come back again in a major way. There's one other mission that kind of does something like this, but I got the idea that what I was looking at here were the remnants of an idea that the devs hoped to be far more prominent in the main game, but ended up cutting to meet deadlines, though that's just my speculation. Because I have to say that exploration across a small area like this where I can accomplish a series of objectives feels way better in a Killzone game than I would have expected. Even this section where we platform up the side of a cliff is really fun to do, and we really don't see this again after this sequence. Like this part, for example, where I'm using my Echo to locate my enemy's locations, plan an attack, and from there I'm able to cut through several more Hellghast without even being spotted, and it was legitimately super satisfying. I'm harping on this now because I won't be talking too much about it after this section, but I would have enjoyed more sections like this in the game. Anyway, we place the charge on the AA gun and use our owl zipline mechanic to slide down. And remember, we didn't have to use this. If you weren't thinking about it, you may end up just trailing your way back down the cliffside again. The zipline is legit a cool way to navigate the environment. Now all that's left to do is get our boys the hell out of here. In the back of this base is a dropship with our name on it, but one of the crew is going to have to hotwire the thing to get it ready. Until then, we get a tower defense segment where waves of Hellghast enemies pour in and we have to hold them off. I don't hate this actually. In fact, I had fun with it because the gunplay was genuinely so satisfying. The slow-mo mechanic that kicks in just after taking a healing stem certainly doesn't hurt things either. After we gun through a few dozen soldiers, Lucas and what's left of the crew board the dropship.
Here, returning to base.
Something tells me that's going to piss off the Hellghast.
It started with the crew. It spread. I don't think this was some kind of accident. There's too many fail-safes in place. People are dying.
This was found on the auxiliary drive of the ISA Cassandra. She's one of ours. Black site, R&D, biotech primarily. We try to make contact. Nothing. Crew are presumed dead.
What was the research?
Was supposed to give us leverage. Purely deterrent. God damn it, if the Hellghast exploded, they'd be unstoppable. It wouldn't be a war. A genocide.
So Sinclair tells Lucas about an ISA black site located in one of their ships currently floating in space above Vecta's atmosphere. The R&D being done here was some kind of bioweapons research until contact was lost after that transmission you just saw. Sinclair suspects that the lead scientist on the team is behind it all as she plans to defect to the Hellghast. Our job is to board the ship, restore power to the engines, and send the whole thing flying towards the sun to prevent the Helghast from getting their hands on what was being worked on there, and eradicate the evidence of what the ISA were doing. Which is why we're now floating through space towards the Cassandra to board it from the outside and send it flying to a very hot demise. After getting inside of the ship, we're introduced to another new mechanic, zero gravity movement. We've seen low gravity movement in Killzone before, but this is complete zero gravity. As in, you float around completely independently. It comes and goes throughout this mission, but never overstayed its welcome. Also, would you just look at how absolutely saturated an atmosphere this is? I need to just let the game talk for itself for a minute here.
Elevator's down. I'm finding another route.
Airlock malfunction. Hull integrity compromised.
This is kind of giving off some sci-fi horror vibes, honestly. Like, it's so dark and empty, the groans of the ship are off-putting, and the bodies and lines written all over the place are an undeniable message to us that something very bad has happened here. It feels so out of nowhere, but I'm absolutely in love with it. This level has the least amount of combat of any from the whole game, but it's still one of my favorites because of how cinematic and immersive it all is. A lot of this level is actually just moving through the ship, so there's not much to say about a lot of it, but I do want to make a few points. The zero-G gameplay is used sparingly and tastefully, which made it a very fun and refreshing mechanic to play with every time it showed up. The little spider robots that get introduced here are annoying, but make for a suitable enough enemy for a situation like this. The atmosphere is palpable and arguably the most brilliantly immersive segment from the entire Killzone series. I mean, just look at this incinerator room filled with burnt up skeletal bodies, one of which is holding up an audio log for us to listen to. Just incredible work here. The audio logs are also a fun little addition to help explain exactly what happened on this ship to cause all of this, which I'll get to in a bit. Finally, yet another new mechanic is brought in on this mission in the form of petrosite capacitors. These are kind of like a mini game that has us exploring to locate these objects and carry them to an empty slot to insert them. This kinda just gives you something to do on this level for the most part, but it made for an interesting bit of change from the usual barrage of constant gunfire. I was fine with this.
A Helghast dissident who recently sought asylum in Vecta has given his first interview and revealed some shocking truths about what life behind the wall is really like. Of the many things that were spoken about, state violence, suppression of ideas, perhaps the most sickening revelation is that food has become so scarce in certain areas that the Helghast are resorting to cannibalism simply in order to stay alive.
Of course we don't want to do it. But a lot of us feel we've no option. If it's a choice between letting your children starve to death or feeding them, then I would feed my child.
Eventually, after a solid bit of finding petrosite capacitors to restore power to the various doors we need to access, we're able to reach the bridge. From here, Lucas sets the ship's coordinates to send it flying straight into the sun, but that's just part one of the job. We still need to get power back to the engines or this thing's not moving. There might be one slight problem with that second part of the plan though, and that's the Helghast who just showed up. For some reason, they seem to have some disagreements with my plans for this ship. The look of fighting the Helghast on this ship though is so visually appealing to me. The way their red visors light up the dark hallways is just fantastic. Do not tell me that wasn't sick. After that, we're back into zero-G again, where we descend straight down to restore power to the engines. The Helghast must have boarded the ship somewhere down here because there are a lot of them between us and the power generator. After a bit of stealth and more than a little bit of firearm intervention, we're able to clear our way to the ship's power core. This is a pretty interesting design too, because we have to carry a number of petrosite capacitors across this moving power generator so we can get the engines back online. Honestly, this whole level has really been reminding me of Dead Space so far, but this part in particular... If you know, you know. With the power restored to the engines, we are now on a tight time limit to get the hell out of here before this ship plummets straight into the sun. While setting the new coordinates, however, Lucas detects movement in the ship's lab area, which is almost certainly from Dr. Massar, the scientist responsible for the R&D on this ship, and the one who was planning to defect to the Helghast. Before we leave, we cannot let that happen, so as the Cassandra flies itself towards the sun's gravitational pull, we need to fight through the Helghast, capture Dr. Massar, and take her back to Vecta. What we find when we get down there, however, isn't very pretty.
Weapon test 224HA Series 6. Subject is Helghast male, 33 years, no pre-existing conditions. Initiate exposure?
Hey, the hell is this? What are you doing? What?
Okay, looks promising. Let's run the numbers.
Sinclair did mention before we got here that they were researching bioweapons, but this, he said the ISA wants it as a deterrent. So I guess their plan was to threaten the Helghast with a deadly nerve gas that kills them within seconds. By sending this ship into the sun, we're burning all of the evidence of what the ISA was doing here, and we're supposed to be the good guys.
This is what you do? Experimenting on us? You disgust me.
I came here to destroy this.
Don't lie to me. You came here to bury the truth. Wasn't destroying Helgen enough? I will not see any more innocents die.
Where's Massar?
Massar will answer for what she has done. So will your leaders.
Here. She's taken Massar.
There's still time to stop them. We have to move.
So because we're getting so close to the sun, the light beaming through open windows is actually enough to burn whoever it touches to death, which is a disturbing thing to note given we are still on this thing and it'll be totally gone in a few minutes. Still, shooting out window shields to catch enemies in the rays and burn them to death is an incredibly intuitive gameplay mechanic. It's a race to see who can get to Dr. Massar first, us or that Helghast operative. And she's got a head start. After reaching the escape pod room, it turns out we're too late, and all of the escape pods have been launched already. So getting out of here alive is now our first and only priority.
You're not like the others.
What did you say?
You're different. I know the Helghast. Better than they know themselves. They have an essence. Something you lack. You were tainted with another blood. If you gave me a sample, I would gladly tell you what percentage of your genome is Vectan. I'd guess. More than half.
Take her away! Now!
You're all going to die.
Well, it seems like Echo has some conflicts, and Dr. Massar knows a few things we don't. In the meantime, it's a good thing the ISA managed to find us and pick us up before we got swallowed up into the sun, which Lucas should definitely not be looking at right now. Shouldn't we also be getting burned alive? Either way, we're saved. And on our way back to the Shadow Marshal headquarters with more of the fantastic scenery from before. They really did nail it with the Vecta City design. After landing on the helipad, we're escorted through security to meet up with Sinclair when we get our first and only look at what Lucas Kellen really looks like. This is such a brilliantly clever way to show you your character, and it doesn't hurt that he looks like a certified quirked up white boy. Of course, things can't stay so peaceful and easy for too long. That was close. Well, they've attacked us on our home turf, but that gives us home field advantage. This is honestly the first time the game has had a classic Killzone feeling. Like, this actually looks like something we would have seen in one of the first 3 games. Collapsing buildings, everything is on fire, and we're moving from cover to cover in an actual war zone. I was loving this sequence. Although these kinds of all-out war segments are pretty rare this time around, which is fine because this is a game about a Cold War style story where we play as a special agent, not a soldier. Once we clear the area, it's time to relink with Sinclair, but something feels off. Why would the Helghast do something like this? It would be an act of war to attack us in broad daylight.
Hold your fire! He's one of ours. Marshal, Sinclair's outside. He wants to see you.
Alright, walking back through the desolation of the attack we just saw, we find Sinclair waiting for us near the helipad. He calls us to follow him as he prepares to give us a rundown on our next move. As the dropship takes off, Sinclair expresses that he suspected an attack like this might happen, and that now is the time to mobilize and do what it takes to retaliate. Shortly after that, a transmission goes live from an organization the soldier next to us calls the Black Hand.
I got the broadcast running. Intel confirms it's the Black Hand.
Today marks the beginning of your penance. 30 years ago, our whole world was swept away in a tide of vector justice. Some of us refuse to lay down and die. Some of us refuse to let an enemy dictate our future.
Find him! We're working on it, sir.
Some of us refuse to accept your war prison. We are the Black Hand, forged in the fires of hell.
I told them we are at war. Thinking they could buy time. We should have gone in first. Never given them a chance. Blood's on their hands now.
Sinclair laments that the ISA has waited too long to go in and snuff out the Black Hand, a supposed terrorist organization that operates independently of the Helghast government and supposedly against their will. Now those terrorists have destroyed the top of a building and killed dozens of people. We can't worry about that yet because the Black Hand has also been spotted at a train rail where they've hijacked 3 trains. Although we're not sure why, we need to get down there and stop those trains from departing immediately. Time is ticking, and there's at least 3 trains currently compromised by Helghast forces, although I guess it'd be more accurate to call them Black Hand forces since supposedly this is all the work of a terrorist crew and not representative of the Helghast government's will. There's a fun amount of platforming here actually. Shadowfall's inclusion of this clamber animation always makes it feel so intense and immersive to leap between platforms like this. Boarding the first train, we totally clear it out before hacking the consoles and shutting it down. That's 1 train out of commission, only 2 more to go. We leap back out onto the platform and cut our way through to the second train. After boarding it, we see every screen has been hacked to play the Black Hand message on a loop. And even worse, the situation escalates after we retake control of this train.
We're tracking multiple hostiles. Deploying rockets. We're evacuating the stadium area, but there's too many people. It's gonna take at least 45 minutes. I don't care how long it takes. Get those people out of there.
There's bombs now, and even though we shut the second train down, most of the bombs are on the third train, which is readying to depart in just a few minutes. After platforming our way across to the final train, we're able to board it and start making our way to the controls to stop it from heading towards a populated area.
Pulsar 1-8. The last train car. It's filled with explosives. Shit! They've linked the bomb in series. I can't defuse it in time.
1-8! Get back in here now! We need to disable that train! It's headed straight for the central station! There are hundreds of civilians trapped in there. We need to shoot the train off the rails. Use the minigun. Go! Go!
Use the chain gun to blow a bomb-filled train off its rails. Say less, Sinclair. Say less.
Congratulations, soldier. You just saved a lot of lives.
Today marks the beginning of your penance.
We traced the feed. He's right here in West Vector. We've never had a confirmed sighting before now. I want you to go in, rendezvous with the ground team, and secure the hostages. Off the record, Tyrann takes priority. You understand? I want Tyrann's head, Lucas. On a stick.
Oh yeah, I understand. Save who we can, but make sure the terrorist dies first and foremost. You got it, boss. Say less. Grappling down to the tower, we rally with a few ISA soldiers before finding a good entry point to rappel down. What's cool here is that the game lets you pick from 3 different potential entry points from which to rappel down. It doesn't make a lot of difference which one you pick, but it's still a nice touch that makes you feel like you've got a bit more agency than you otherwise would have. Once we choose our point and slide down, we can see dozens of Black Hand soldiers hiding around the building. So all that's left for us to do is clean house, free the hostages, and find Tyrann. While we were busy taking care of business, Tyrann got a head start on escaping, which makes it handy that our owl can act as a grapple to let us scale down the side of this building in pursuit of him.
I'm not as easy to kill. Keep the knife, you'll need it.
I've really got to give Guerrilla some props here because I was beyond invested in this plot. There's so much implicative subtext happening around what we've been doing up to this point, and whereas the previous Killzone games had some epic moments, none of them felt nearly as high octane as this. I mean, the game is going off the rails with these set pieces. Like, what could they even do to raise the stakes at this point?
There! On the platform! PID on Tyrann! Man, Tyrann is boarding an ISA-designated dropship! Kill him! Don't let them escape!
Damn, dude, Lucas has the grip strength of a superhuman strongman competitor. What the hell? This game is insane. Hanging off this rope, we're dragged through the skies of Vector City after having just been stabbed. I mean, it's just so cool. This is honestly one of the most climactic and insane set pieces of the whole franchise, and it's not even close. Eventually, though, Lucas does manage to climb up to the dropship to confront Tyrann and put an end to this.
Your persistence. I respect that. But it's in your nature to lose.
Lucas, when I look out there, I see our enemies testing us, seeing if we have the resolve.
If you send me back in, I will find him. I promise.
Tyrann must be made an example of. They have to know that we are strong. We have to show them. We're sending you in as a refugee, using the deportation as cover. Once you're on the other side, you'll make contact with an informant, codenamed Zeus. He'll give you Tyrann's location. Find him and execute. Then make your way to the extraction site. You see what they're like. These people are animals. All of them. The threat is real. It's not just on the other side. It's come here. To our home. We must defend it. At all costs.
In spite of your mistakes, we have always hoped you would return. Today, our hopes were answered. From now on, you will work hard to reintegrate and make the sacrifices that are required to lift us to glory. In all areas of life, you will succeed. At home and at work, you will strive for excellence. You will make us proud. The state of New Helghan welcomes you home.
Okay, so it's been literally 1 day since Lucas got stabbed in the chest, and that's the actual in-game timeline, by the way. It's like he's got a death wish at this point. And if he does, this is certainly a great place to fulfill it. New Helghan, Beyond the Wall. as Helghast citizens are being deported out of Vecta City back into New Helghan, and they're welcomed to the other side of the border with a motivational speech on the speaker about reintegrating and rebuilding Helghan together. All of these Helghast who were living among the humans are being deported out of Vecta City and back into New Helghan because of the Black Hand terror attack. It just so happened to make a great excuse for Lucas to easily walk right through the wall without raising any suspicions of ISA involvement. They do this strange thing here where the sensor goes off for one of the civilians and they say they found one before breaking her apart from her husband. I think this is supposed to be a sad moment where we're watching a loving couple be separated, but it would have helped a lot if I knew why it was happening. It happens again to the guy ahead of us as the sensor says it's unable to process due to insufficient data. Like, I'm guessing if they don't have any prior data on you as a Helghast, you're supposed to be sent back to Vecta City, but they might just straight up be executing them since there's no data on them. It's not really made clear. But as you're walking through the line, the Helghast all referred to the refugees as traitors, presumably for abandoning New Helghan to go live with the humans in Vecta City. It's really amusing how hard they work to hammer home that New Helghan is a dystopian nightmare, honestly. All of the buildings are black and blood red. You know, the scary color combination, and everything is metallic and lifeless. Civilians are being denied their medication as they lay in pain beside their loved ones, and people are afraid to board the train. I guess I'll say this though, what it lacks in subtlety, it makes up for in style. Once we board the train, we actually end up standing on it for a surprisingly long time before we're far enough in for Lucas to withdraw a detonator and blow the tracks. How exactly did he manage to slip that past the guards at the border gate? Taking out the guard, the refugees jump the train and start running in every direction. This puts us right inside of the New Helghan slums, and unsurprisingly, it's a total visual spectacle. I mean, this is some science fiction dystopia right here, and I love it. Our mission here is simple. We need to link up with an ISA informant codenamed Zeus hiding behind enemy lines and get his intel on where Tyrion is so we can kill him and end the Black Hand. Remember earlier when I mentioned there was only one other level that kind of opened up into a small hub where you can explore a little like the first one? Well, this is that level, and it's pretty much one of the coolest levels in the game. We are able to sort of freely navigate this small section of the New Helghan slums, take out some Helghast patrols, find comic pages and other collectibles, and of course, complete an optional special side quest, which I'll get to in a second. The level of detail across this environment is so brilliant that it almost demands the player subconsciously recognize the amount of work and polish they put into meticulously making it all feel alive and real. No matter where I was looking, be it platforming across a few shanty rooftops or sprinting in between refugee shacks, it was all so detailed that modern games should be embarrassed by comparison. After locating the hideout where our informant was supposed to be waiting for us, we find it empty. So we reorient our search to try and track down where he's moved to, knowing it must be nearby, and it is actually. Climbing through a vent and across a very cool little underhang of pipes, we find the hidden room where Zeus has taken cover.
Dave! Kellen. What's he got on you? Sinclair. He's got to have something, right? You here? What? You think you're special? Didn't you know? I'm special too, man. We all are.
Cut the shit. Where is he?
Hey, easy. Come here. You see that tower? Your boy Tyrion's holed up at the bottom. You need to take a container down into the canyon. I'm telling you, it's messed up down there. You go in, you're not getting out. You know they're coming for me. There's a tracking database up at that platform. If you destroy it, I might have a chance to get away.
So that's the optional side quest I mentioned earlier. These are few and far between, but I actually suspect that they were hoping to make a lot more of this game's levels open-ended like this with more side quests, but probably cut the idea way down in order to reach deadlines and launch with the PS4. Either way, we're going to do it, of course, by killing our way to that terminal to erase his information. Doing this will give him a better chance of getting out of here alive without Helghast retribution. Once we find the terminal, we send the owl to hack it and erase his info from their records.
You did it! Data's been erased. I didn't think you would. I owe you one.
Alright, now let's get back to work. According to Zeus's intel, there's a moving shipping container we can take down to the lower levels of this area, which is where Tyrion's hideout is located. So once we fight our way through the guards and find said shipping container, we're able to ride it straight down. Easy enough. The op is proceeding pretty smooth so far. This is another really cool idea for a set piece too, because we're slowly going down this massive area, and it's clear at this point that a lot of this game's locations were just trying to show off how much the PS4 was capable of rendering at once. But that doesn't mean they were slacking on maintaining the world building. like having to go through a container of refugees. They act afraid at first, pointing a gun at us before realizing that we're not a Hellgast and letting us pass without issue. Where was this level of intense sincerity in Killzone 3? There's a lot of slow-burning exploration and progression here, not really any action for a few minutes while we slowly work our way through this refugee living quarters, which is fine with me actually. The slower sections like this really help make the intense parts go harder. But I mean, this is a Killzone game, so this slow segment doesn't last long before the bullets start flying. There's not much more to say from here because it pretty much becomes a corridor shooter from here until the end of the level. We pass through an arena or two with some slower areas of exploration in between, although again, the shooter arenas in this game are a lot better than any of the ones in previous Killzone games based on a number of reasons, not least of which being that this one actually feels fun and responsive to play. Also, this part where you have to use the zipline to cross is so cool to me. The sheer scale of these levels is incredible, and also we get another minigun to cut these Hellghasts into pieces. Unfortunately, I think now is a good time to address how the chain gun in this game is strangely unsatisfying. I don't know how they managed to mess this up because the chain guns in previous games were awesome. I kinda noticed it when I shut down the train, but it became more apparent here. I mean, for one, holding left trigger doesn't keep the barrel spinning, and you have to be quick to the draw here or you'll die. So I was walking around tapping the trigger to have it kinda half spinning while trying not to fire and waste ammo. It just kinda sucks. No idea how they managed to regress on their weapon design here. Either way, we do finally locate Tyrion.
Don't worry. Your use outweighs your recklessness. When the time comes, you will be needed to deliver the weapon.
I am honored. And when will it be ready?
Soon. The little mouse is here, hard at work. That's right, Vecton. Masar's talents aren't going to waste. Only now, she's focused on eliminating a different race. Yours. That's better. See, this is what happens when you blow things up. You'll come snooping around for answers.
Do what you came to do, assassin. Make your country proud.
I mean, that's one way to kill a target. You know, Lucas is supposed to be a hand-to-hand combat expert being a shadow marshal and all, and yet he keeps getting his ass kicked in every close quarters encounter he gets in. Seriously, it's like his training just disappears anytime a named character swings a fist in his direction. Either way, everything is currently falling apart around us and we are unarmed. So the move is to descend down this tower and reach the extraction point before the Hellghast come swarming around us. It's a pretty interesting scene visually, but it's really not fun to play. Lucas is very slow, my guess is because he's injured or something, but it makes everything feel really boring and tedious. It would have been a lot more fun if they would have designed this for Lucas to run and jump gaps more. I mean, the clamber animation is already in the game. Just build the tower a pinch different and restore his movement speed, and this would be way more fun. Either way, we don't make it to evac on time, and we're cornered, so Lucas has to throw his hands up and accept his arrest at the Hellghast hands.
Who is your contact? Who is it? The name! Who is your contact? Take this opportunity to reflect on your behavior.
Wow, so he's being tortured and talked down to. Ouch.
I hope you are more helpful in their return.
We haven't got much time. I'm not going to harm you. The attack on Vecta had nothing to do with us. I want to end this, not start another war. Now tell me, who is Tyrion working with?
Untie me.
You are not in a position to bargain. Who is it?
Stahl. Jorhan. Stahl. He's on Helgen. You gave him Masar.
She's building him a weapon. Vectans. Half-breeds. Everyone dies. Including you.
You are under orders. I expected you to follow them.
How could you? What Massar did on that ship was an abomination. She deserves punishment. I'll kill her myself if I have to.
Please spare me the melodrama. You are talking about things you cannot possibly understand.
What has Stahl promised you? Power?
He has promised us a home and the survival of our people. At last we have a chance to negotiate from a position of strength.
That is Scholar Vazari's daughter, by the way.
As we deserve.
Not like this. Have you forgotten the blood that runs through my veins?
How dare you question me?
I will be killed no matter who is targeted.
Be quiet at once.
Oh, Mother, please,
Never call me that!
Ooh, she's ashamed of her past fling with a human, apparently.
You make no demands of me.
I think I walked in on some family drama or something here.
Guards, I'm having you sent away, where you'll be safe.
Wait! No! Mother, please! Don't do this!
Curious to think we were once the same race. And now you're the enemy. I shouldn't feel anything. But I do. Keep him alive.
Oh, come on, don't leave me in here with evil Joe Rogan.
So have you ever done DMT?
You've been moved.
Sinclair, I have to warn him.
No, there's no time. Just follow my instructions and I'll get you out of here. I'll protect you.
Alright, so someone using a voice modulator contacts us to act as a friendly voice, guiding us out of here. Whoever they are clearly have access to control these shipping containers on a whim. So this part of the game is all timing, platforming, and stealth. I mean, it's a pretty interesting little sequence, a lot like that one scene from The Matrix where Morpheus is guiding Neo through the offices.
Stop. There's a patrol up ahead. Hide in that container.
I liked it overall. It was a refreshing change of pace, but that isn't to imply the game had been repetitive up to now, because it definitely has not been. We do some climbing and platforming, avoiding enemy sight as our faceless savior goes as far as shooting Helghast who might spot us from a distance.
You won't get out of here alive. No one ever does.
Damn, thanks for the vote of confidence.
Get those laps up.
You make a habit of disobeying orders.
I should have never handed over Massar. As long as she's alive, they'll use her. Both sides. We have to move. They find you out here, you're dead.
To no one's surprise, the voice on the radio was the woman we've been running into. I guess when she realized Helghast were more interested in retooling Massar's virus into a bioweapon targeted at humans than they were at securing peace, she opted to try and help us. As we follow behind this Helghast operative, she tells us there's a smuggling route we can utilize to put some distance between us and Chancellor Vasari.
The Vectan half of you. Do you know him?
I learned very early on not to ask that question. I know what I am, Kellen, and I'm not ashamed. All that matters to me is my people.
A sort of ideological dialogue takes place between the two here, as both of them defend their own side a small bit, but end up agreeing that they have to work together to stop a war from breaking out between the two. Since Lucas doesn't have a weapon right now, Echo syncs up her HUD with his so he can mark targets and she can take them out, which will be a reoccurring mechanic through the rest of the game. And another new mechanic we get is the ability to quick hack Helghast spider bots. Doing this allows us to assume the perspective of said bot and control it. By doing this, we can access panels from a distance that we aren't able to reach ourselves, and by overloading the spider bot, short-circuit said panels. We're still unarmed here, so we'll be relying on Echo until we can get our hands on a weapon.
You're gonna need this.
Or she can spare us her sidearm. That works too.
Remember why we're doing this. Sinclair trusts you. He's the one that you need to convince. The VSA are running things. Vector will follow his lead.
What makes you think you can trust me?
I can't. But I know you don't want your people to die, and I can trust that. Keep heading for the wall. I'll take the higher ground and cover you. Tell me what to shoot.
So the play here is to take out as many of these Helghast without being spotted as we can. I really liked this part because we were given the chance to mix in our own kills with pointing out targets for Echo to kill from a distance. I ended up restarting it several times because I wanted to get that optimally satisfying run. It's great, I love this. So it's a good thing there's a few sections like this back to back this level. Once we fight our way through these outer areas deeper into the slums, the game shows us how bad the living conditions really are here.
This is the truth, Kellen. This is what your sanctions do.
I'm not gonna wait to die!
These are the people they hurt. All you're doing is helping to breed a new generation of extremists.
Don't do this. I love you! Thank you. I don't care who you are, just help! Somebody please help us!
This is all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the only time anything like this ever happens in the game, but I still think it's pretty cool that they put little interactable moments with the Helghan citizens to hammer home the damage done to New Helghan by Vectan sanctions. As clarified by Echo, the whole city is struggling because Vecta has such intense sanctions on New Helghan trade due to various governmental disputes. So because of disagreeing governments and heavy imposed sanctions, the people are suffering here. This is a level of nuanced writing that no other Killzone game has even gotten close to approaching. What the hell was going on at Guerrilla when this game was being made? But it's very well balanced out with some high-octane action again, as we have a sort of mini-boss battle against a a large attack drone. It's a pretty quick one, because you just have to lure it under this crate and...
It's destroyed.
Yeah, that'll do it. A backup squad comes barreling through the door I need to go through to try and cut me off, but with a well-placed grenade, we can make short work of them. Good progress so far. We're closing in on the wall. With the info we have about Johann Stahl still being alive, it's crucial that we get back into Vecta City and inform Sinclair of what's going on. Echo continues to plead with Lucas to ask Sinclair about convincing the ISA to stand down and avoid a war. Lucas isn't very receptive to the idea at first, and then says that it's not a call that he can make for the ISA, nor is it one she can make for the Helghast. She asks, why is it that people like them allow others to make decisions that start wars they don't have to fight? Saying the people who make those calls couldn't care less about the people who die fighting the wars they start. This was a sentiment that we saw brought up briefly in Killzone 2 actually, but not nearly to this level. Whereas this idea was touched on then, it's actually being dived into here. Lucas sees Echo waiting for him as he relinks with her. She hands us her sniper rifle and asks us to cover her so she can utilize her stealth camouflage to navigate to the transit controls and activate them. Riding a shipping container is our best bet of getting across this area because trying to fight through this would be suicide at this point. Something I really respect about Shadowfall is that every mission feels like it's trying to introduce new mechanics to mix up the flow of the gameplay loop. The other Killzone games are just a straight path from one end of a level to the other while taking out as many enemies as you can. This time, every mission tries to expose the player to a new element that makes it stand out from the others. Each level has some unique mechanic that makes it special. Eventually, Echo gets the crate moving and we're off, which is good because we're heavily outnumbered here. While we're on the container, we can see the wall dead ahead. It's a fantastic visual actually. Echo and Lucas continue their philosophical conversation, but this time, Lucas relents as Echo pushes that both have been enslaved to the will of people who don't care if they live or die. Lucas reluctantly agrees and says he'll do what he can to try and convince the ISA to stand down and avoid another war. In the meantime, Echo says they have to hunt down and kill Dr. Massar. Her bioweapon that targets only members of a certain race is about as evil as it gets, and so they both agree she has to be killed and her research destroyed to prevent that weapon from falling into either side's hands.
What you said about killing Massar, you mean it?
I couldn't live with myself otherwise. If you were honest, neither could you. Come on, it's not much further.
We're almost there. We just have to push through a little further. We're kind of at a disadvantage here because we're lacking our suit and our owl companion. Sure, we have Echo, but not having the owl was actually noticeable in its absence during my gameplay. You definitely feel at a disadvantage while playing. We're almost out of here though, so we can't let up yet. Making it to the control center, we're able to clear the room. Echo tells us she'll need some time to get control of the ATACs, which means we've come to our second tower defense section of the game. This one is quite a bit harder than the first, despite having a minigun, however, because they still have these tank-like attack drones that they outnumber us with several dozen to one. One thing that does help this part really stand out, though, is that we can mark targets for our several ATACs now being controlled by Echo to hone in on, and, I mean, that's pretty cool to me. The atmosphere of the whole battle is excellent, as the pouring rain sets the stage for our last stand in New Helghan, as the city's skyline lights up the background in the distance, reminding us of where we just escaped from. So good. Eventually, however, we do manage to take out enough of the incoming Hellgas to let us catch our breath. The real question is, how exactly are we getting over the wall?
Now's our chance. Hop up on this ATAC and I'll pilot you across the wall.
Seriously?
Unless you have a better idea. You have to convince Sinclair to stand down.
What about Stahl? Massar?
Give me 48 hours, Massar will be dead. Without her, Stahl is finished. He's got nothing but a dead planet. We can avoid war, you know that we can.
I mean, if she can really take out Massar, then this situation will pretty much resolve itself, but still, we have to try and talk Sinclair out of pursuing war, assuming we survive the trip over the wall.
Think you're the first person to ride on one of these. Don't be the last.
Yeah, this is sketchy. Of course, it couldn't be easy. When is it ever? Alright, this is actually a really interesting section despite only being around a minute long, because this little zone between the New Helghan Wall and the entrance to Vecta City is basically a no man's land, and when your drone touches down, everyone starts firing bullets. Sprinting through the mud, we do manage to find our way back into the base and out of that hellhole.
Cover him! Remember what I said about Vasari. Make sure Sinclair knows.
Ah, it's good to be back home.
Get me Sinclair.
Watch it, Lucas. Trust is easily lost in this game, and you don't get it back.
She helped me escape. I'd be dead otherwise.
You're gonna side with her over me? She told you she's gonna kill Massar. The one thing we need. The Black Hand, Vasari, Stahl. There's no difference. Their agenda is the same. To wipe us out. It's always been that way. You know that more than anyone. Christ's sake, your father paid with his life. You gonna let his death mean nothing?
They are innocent people!
No! They're not innocent, Kellen. They're complicit. They all are. We have been given a chance. Secure the weapon and Massar. This thing targeted Hellgast once. She can do it again. Vasari won't be able to threaten us. Ever. We can finally take our home back. The Black Hand intel you retrieved details this mining spire in orbit around the planet. I need you to infiltrate, find the weapon, and Massar. Do not let the half-breed get in your way. Show me I can still trust you, Lucas.
That didn't go well. Lucas kept his promise and did try to convince Sinclair to stand down, but he wasn't interested in hearing it. That puts us right back where we were before, on the opposite side of Echo, and on a mission to rescue Massar and bring her back in so she can turn her weapon into one coded to kill only Hellgast. Not much Lucas can really say about it. That's his job after all. And so here we are, floating outside of another space station, breaking into it so we can find Massar and extract her. At least we've got our suit and owl back. We're aboard a Helghast space station, and I think we've got the element of surprise. I gotta admit though, the next sequence here was one that is so simple in concept, but was so much fun in execution. Yeah, it's simple, but there's something about free falling through a series of moving objects that's so cool to me. I love stuff like this. Believe it or not, this is one of the most consistently combat-heavy missions we've seen so far. There's Helghast soldiers around every corner, including a new type with an energy shield that deflects projectiles. So in order to counter that, we have to take advantage of other methods to disable their shields. Our secondary fire can charge a shot that knocks out their shield, and our owl has an EMP function that'll do it as well. There's a few other ways of doing it too, like EMP grenades. What matters is that you knock their shields out and take them down. There isn't as much for me to say here as there has been in a lot of past missions because it's honestly just a lot of killing people. It's very classic Killzone. It really feels like the game lets you off your leash for real around this time. Eventually, of course, we do kill them all and find the awful Dr. Massar.
I can't concentrate if I'm interrupted.
Pulsar 1-8. I found Massar.
Copy that, 1-8. Secure the target. On the side of the building.
Don't mistake this for failure. You're too late. It's waiting for you down there. With him. It far exceeds what was glimpsed on the Cassandra. I'm attempting to refine its yield. I look forward to seeing it tested on such a large scale.
This woman is psychotic. She goes on to rant for another 30 or so seconds about how elegant and beautiful the Helghast anatomy is due to their physiological superiority from being forced to adapt to the harsh living conditions of the planet Helgen, and says that the longer humanity exists, the more we simply block the Helghast from fulfilling their true evolutionary potential. She's not only okay with mass genocide of the human population, she wants it. A squad of Helghast burst through the door to interrupt her monologue and try to kill us, but it's not over yet. While Massar rushes to escape on a gondola, we place a C4 charge on the window and take a shortcut to catch up. I'm not sure what weapon Lucas is firing here, where it came from, or if it's like a part of his suit or what, but we're able to fire off projectiles to destroy these drones and keep them from killing us or Massar. We also have to destroy other cargo transports that are headed to collide with Massar's container too. It's a really interesting little segment, if a short one, but the Zero-G gameplay is a lot of fun, so I'm not complaining. Still really confused about what weapon Lucas is firing here, where he got it, and why it has unlimited ammo. With Massar secured in the container, we get her inside the airlock and ready to be loaded up and taken back to Vecta.
I know it's a bit premature, but do you think you could find out when I'll have access to a laboratory and equipment?
Move.
Only it's important that I know, then at least I can make preparations. Worst comes to worst, I can make basic calculations in my head, devise strategies, start probing new areas of interest.
You're going to help us stop this.
No! No, you're wrong.
You've not changed. You're just the same. A race of cowards.
What a delightful person Vecta dug up and gave a massive budget to the interest of ethnically erasing the entire Helghast population. Yeah, I think it's important to remember that although the Helghast want Massar to do that for them too, the only reason this is an issue is because Vecta started it with their research on the Cassandra. As we escort Massar and turn her over to our ISA allies, they restrain her and inform us that an army of Helghast soldiers are just minutes from raining down on our position to try and take her back. Welcome to Tower Defense Section number 3. Unlike the last one, this one was just kind of stretched and annoying. There isn't an interesting gimmick here like controlling the ATACs in the last one. We just sort of burn through half a dozen weapons trying to eliminate all of the Helghast without dying, and it goes on for way longer than it had any right to. I mean, we do eventually get to use a dropship turret, but that doesn't really redeem it. It was fun placing trip mines and firing out into a massive crowd of troops the first wave or two, but it definitely overstayed its welcome. Eventually, we do finally cut through enough of them to make them fall back so we can regroup and finish this. Maybe for the worse.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Stand down, Sergeant! We have our orders, sir.
What are you doing? You can't give her back to Sinclair.
You're deceiving yourself.
What's happening?
Pulsar? She's here!
God damn it.
Can you not feel it? There's sickness.
Stand down, Sergeant!
Kellen, take her out right now! Right now, Kellen, goddammit! Take her out!
Sergeant, stop!
I told you. She cannot live.
What's happening? What's going on?
Massar's dead. She got me out, sir. I have to trust her.
I thought you were smarter than this, Kellen. I warned you. I will not let you screw this up. This is our home, goddammit!
I know what I'm doing.
You run with her, I can no longer guarantee your safety.
Do you know what you're doing?
Sinclair's made his choice. Now I have to make mine. We have to find this weapon and destroy it. Otherwise, it's over. For all of us.
A dropship's entering Helgen's atmosphere. We can use these and go in undetected. It may lead us to the weapon. Come on.
Oh, well, that's convenient. What is even the purpose of this thing anyway? And where are we going?
Stay on that dropship. We can't afford to lose it if we want to find the weapon. It's hit. They're taking it down. Stay on it. The smoke should make it easy to trace. We've entered Helgen's atmosphere. It's safe to disengage the orbital divers and free fall to the surface.
Okay, so we're now free-falling with a massive pile of wreckage, a lot of which nearly knocks us off our trajectory. This part is just insane. For the first time all game, we're actually heading down to the planet Helgen, and in one of the unsafest ways imaginable. The dropship we need to follow with the weapon we need on it has been damaged and is plummeting to the surface along with us, so we have to try and land as close to it as we can. Whoa, I gotta say, Helgen has looked better. Damn, so this is the result of what we did back in Killzone 3? This place is completely destroyed. Can we just appreciate how cool this is, by the way? Seriously, I feel like these kinds of high-octane, insane set pieces are pretty much totally missing from modern games anymore. Is that just me? Either way, we eventually managed to land near Echo's position so we can regroup.
Kellen, I'm on the road below you.
Heading down. I can see smoke from the crash.
You're way too exposed up there. Hurry up.
On my way.
The planet's core is unstable. There's going to be a lot of tremors from here on in. Watch your footing. Ground's unstable.
I've never seen anything like this.
So this is Helgen. Even decades after the Terracide, it's still utterly in ruins. The whole planet is falling apart. Having the game bring us here felt like a good decision, and a great way to really hit home just how devastating the end of the third game really was. We find Echo and relink with her as she tells us about these petricide wells that, when activated with a small petricide explosion, creates an anti-gravity lift. Another very cool mechanic that does end up getting plenty of usage for the rest of this level. The last level was very combat heavy, but this one gives the player a bit of a breather, choosing to focus on exploration and light combat. It's far more reminiscent of that second mission where most of our time will be spent finding petricide capacitors and navigating the environment. It sounds like it'd be dull, but I promise it isn't. I was having a great time, and the break from typical FPS combat was very much welcome. The main obstruction we'll face here isn't from soldiers, but rather these mobile scan units. They don't actually move despite the name, but they will shred you to pieces. Seriously, if they see you, they'll spam you with missiles and machine guns until you are dead. The only way to deactivate them is, of course, to find a couple of petrosite capacitors, plug them into the unit's 2 power supply generators, and then shoot the capacitors to destroy the generators. These little drones are carrying these capacitors around by the thousands though, so there's always one nearby. You have to stay on your guard here too, because these buildings we're currently navigating are falling apart, and at any given moment, something could... Yeah, there's no way this building is up to regulation standards. We need to find a way out of here fast before the rest of this place falls apart.
Kellen, are you okay?
That was close.
Be careful. Let's not slow down. We're not far from the crash site. Vasari was younger than I am now. To see your home destroyed, everything taken away from you? I can't imagine what that must have been like for her.
Alright, we're close to the crash site, but we're going to have to get through that scan unit up ahead, and let me just go ahead and tell you, this part is hard. I think I ended up having to replay this section more times than any other part of the game, just because there's a massive tank drone wandering around that can kill you so fast, and a bunch of spider bot crates that you have to take out, not to mention how dangerous the scan units themselves already are. After some strategic stealth and sabotage, we are able to destroy the mobile scan unit and get the hell out of there before the attack drone can rip us to pieces. Seeing the desolation in person has caused Lucas to begin understanding their side.
How can they ever forgive us?
We're very close to the crash site now, but we're also running out of time. The Helghast currently still living on Helgen, despite its inhospitable condition, are most assuredly gunning for it too.
I have a visual on the crash site.
I see it. Moving in.
He's here. It's Tyrion. He's alive.
Son of a bitch.
We're flying him out.
We need to track him. He'll lead us to the weapon.
I'm on it.
Okay, that complicates things. We've got to find that ship and get the weapon back. It looks like they flew over the mountain into a valley, meaning there's a Helghast base in there somewhere, and we have to get to it. Which means stealthing our way down this hill, taking out another mobile scan unit, and regrouping with Echo. Once we find her, we can figure out our next move. And there she is. Okay, so far so good. We should be able to catch up to them before it's too late, assuming we maintain the element of surprise to some degree. Well, that ship just ripped up half the road just by flying over it. This planet is going to rip itself apart within the next few decades until there's nothing left.
He's leading us right towards the weapon. It's heavily armed. There's no way in unless you disable the mobile scan unit. I'll find another way down. If we flank our approach, we stand a better chance of breaking through. If it comes to it, Kellen, the weapon takes priority. We can't let them use it.
Let's make sure it doesn't come to that.
This is getting complicated. We're in what looks like the heart of where the damage to this place happened, and it's in a place those of you who have been watching my coverage of the other games, or who have played the previous games, might know once I say it. This is what's left of Old Pyrrhus, the capital city of Helgen, and it's looking quite a bit different since an extinction-level event happened at the end of the last game. We don't get many sniper sections in this game really, and even this one is totally optional and a bit hard to do since a few of the soldiers have on energy shields to protect them from projectiles. You can take care of that with some savvy shooting, however. It's a short little section, but it was nice to have an arena start off by letting you do some old-fashioned sniping. Eventually though, we have to get back to basics.
I'm gonna tear you apart!
We're close now, but once again, stealth is going to take priority here, at least in my playstyle. The play is simple. avoid being spotted by the mobile scan unit, take out any soldiers in our path, raid the nearby Helghast armory, plant a couple of charges, and then watch the fireworks. Now we just need to find Echo again. Unfortunately, the weapon isn't where we thought it'd be, which means Tyrion must still have it. Alright, fine. We just need to clear the platform and catch a train. Can't run forever, Tyrion. You can't run forever. Even if we can catch up to him, though, there's still the problem of Stahl, but I guess he doesn't have much to work with down here on a dying planet, so neutralizing the weapon should neutralize his plans. Oh, okay. So Stahl does have something to work with. A lot of something, actually. He's got an entire fleet of Helghast warships.
See? Sorry has no choice. You have to tell Sinclair to stand down.
He won't listen.
We'll try. If you don't, Vecta's gone.
Sir, do you read me? Over. Sir, if you can hear me, you have to pull back. Stahl's been waiting. He knew we were coming. Sir, copy. Do you read? Sir!
Nothing.
Let's just hope he heard you.
Even if he didn't, our mission hasn't changed. Fight our way to Tyrion and get back that weapon. He should be waiting for us at the end of this facility, but there's only one small problem. And by small problem, I mean small army. You already know how this goes, so let's just run another combat montage and you'll get the point.
How do we stop it? Tell me!
You, Helgen, is but a fantasy dreamt up by coward and traitors.
Focus! The weapon!
The fantasy is about to end. For all of you. The invasion will cost you everything.
You'll never know.
Over.
Yeah, I read you.
Sir, we have to pull back. You can't win this.
We're too late.
Is she still with you? I'll take that as a yes. You may have lost sight of what matters, soldier. But I have not.
You're not listening to me. Stahl has the weapon. I can get to him and stop this. You're walking into a trap.
The die is cast.
Sir!
We tried.
We find Stahl. This ends.
With Tyrion dead, we've got to find a way to Stahl. It's our only hope of ending this war before it starts. So we fight our way to a nearby dropship, board it, and fly it towards Stahl's base. But unfortunately, we're already too late.
Echo, what's wrong?
Is using the weapon.
out it already was over before it began, just for the wrong side.
Echo, this is Kellen. Are you okay? Echo, do you read me?
We're caught in the gravity well beneath Stahl's ship now, which means if we can just avoid being hit by any debris, we should be able to ride it straight up to him. Oh yeah, and also dodge the missiles too. They were proud of their zero-G mechanics, and you can tell because they were looking for reasons to implement it across the game's runtime. That weapon knocked several ISA ships out of the sky, but not all of them. A few of them are still kicking enough to put up a fight against the various Helghast warships, but it's a losing battle. Their only real chance is us finding Stahl and ending this for good. After finding the entrance to the base, the reality sets in that we are alone here. Echo is MIA, and we're alone on a station brimming with angry Helghast. Thankfully, our entrance places us in a stockpile hallway, filled with every weapon type you could want, so there's that at least. The next 10 or so minutes is exactly what you think, a climactic final battle across a station. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and the only thing standing between Vecta and total annihilation. I'll give them this, it is a very tense final battle. The game throws damn near everything it's got at you here, and you've got to remember how to handle the various styles of soldier you've had to deal with up to this point. I really like how it's set on a space station-like environment similar to the end of the first and third games, but it's in the atmosphere instead of space. This game has been kind of a masterclass at staying true to your roots while separating enough to stand alone. Shadowfall has felt, at times, as much like its own game as it has a sequel to the previous games without ever feeling as though it wants to abandon them. It respects the games that came before while building on what they made to deliver a powerful experience all its own that feels not only like its own game, but also like the first in the series to truly respect the universe in which it is set. And with that said, we've reached the end of the line.
Those of us that survived were meant to. Now, it is time for you to suffer that same fate. History demands it. The Helghast cannot live in Vecta's shadow any longer.
Pulsar to ground team. I found the weapon.
Roger that, Pulsar. Securing the perimeter.
I thought I knew you, Lucas. After everything these sons of bitches have taken from us in the past, I didn't think you'd be the one I lost faith in. Be the one I couldn't trust. Every day New Helghan continues to exist, we are under threat. I've shown them that. And now I'll show them how we can remove that threat. Forever. I've always tried to protect you, son. Sorry I couldn't be that person.
And that's Killzone Shadowfall. In terms of how it lines up with the rest of the games, I think this one is actually my favorite because it's... Wait, you weren't caught off guard by that ending, were you? Because the game's been telling you it's coming since the beginning. What, don't believe me?
This is our home too! But it's in your nature to lose.
Sorry I couldn't be that person.
See? Okay, fine, yeah, it totally caught me off guard the first time too. I had the same, wait, what moment that they were clearly going for. It wasn't until I started revisiting the footage that I noticed how much the story was alluding to its own ending. Even with that said, I do have quite a bit to say about it. I'll be honest, I think it's a sour ending. It makes it feel like everything we've been doing up to this point was rewarded with an anticlimactic nothingness. I mean, sure, Stahl was killed and the weapon swapped hands from the Helghast to the ISA, but it still feels like a punch to the gut. I've never really loved these kinds of subversive endings because we as humans want a positive and climactic ending to our stories. Something that resolves the story while making us feel like the journey was worth it. So it's no surprise to me that a lot of people didn't like the way this game wrapped up the story, especially after spending so much time with this new hero only to kill him off like this. It just leaves a bitter taste in the mouth of an unsatisfied player in my case. That said, there is something I do like about this ending, and that's the point it's making. Sinclair is our adopted father. He took us in as a child, raised us, trained us, helped us, provided for us, and was, for all intents and purposes, a father figure. Figure being the key word there, because Sinclair wasn't our father, was he? Our father died in New Helghan, and we watched it happen. No! Sinclair is a surrogate, and not only that, he's head of the ISA Shadow Marshal Service, making him a government administrator. Sinclair is the ISA, and he never really cared about us. What about Lady Visari, mother to Echo, and in her case, biological mother at that? She slapped Echo for even referring to her by the title of mother. We're given the impression that she didn't even care about her own daughter, at least not enough, because Lady Visari is the Helghast. The game truly begins when Lucas and Echo are being exchanged for one another to the other side, so their supposed parental figures can have them back, because seemingly they care for them. Some provisions are given and measures are taken to take care of these children, and this is clear. But when Echo becomes unruly, Lady Visari wants nothing to do with her. And when Lucas strays from Sinclair's will, he similarly wants nothing to do with him. This all ties back to a running theme within Killzone's narrative. A thread tying back as far as Killzone 2 even.
Those gold-braided bastards who sacrifice anyone to use their asses a couple.
A sentiment subtly hidden throughout the entire series, some entries more than others admittedly. War makers care nothing for those who must fight the wars they make. Governments that seem and claim to care for you will turn you away when you become inconvenient or kill you when you become problematic. It's possible I am reading into it all too much, but I don't think so. I mean, it's not like they spent the whole first level of the game letting you play as 5-year-old Lucas with his real father for no reason. They needed to instill in the player not only who Sinclair is, but who he isn't. Killzone Shadowfall is an anti-war game. It's a story about cultural unrest and resentment mixing with war-hungry souls craving conflict. I think there's actually more depth in this one game's narrative than in the rest of the series put together. Lucas's character is one of resolve. He lost his father and he hates the Helghast for what they did. He followed in the footsteps of Sinclair and became a Shadow Marshal just so he could take the battle to them. And yet when the true motivations of the ISA to develop a weapon meant to mass exterminate every Helghast by their DNA, even he was given pause. Similarly, Echo was a half Helghast, half Vectan, borderline disowned by her own mother. She placed her own people first and makes it clear that she has no love for Vectans. But again, she doesn't want war or to genocide the Vectan people. Both of these characters are able to agree that war isn't what they want. And yet, the dissonance between peoples makes lasting peace seem almost impossible. Much of this is summed up in a final monologue from Stahl as Lucas ascends the elevator to confront him.
Vectans are selfish. They care only about themselves. They look at their fellow man and resent him, each one seeking more than the other. There is no love in your hearts, only greed. It is because of this weakness that you cannot endure like we can. We have something much stronger than you. We have belief. A belief that cannot be shaken, no matter how hard you try. Know that killing me changes nothing. It only prolongs the inevitable. It is simply a matter of biology. You were born on the wrong side, Marshal.
It's a game about how governments do not care about you and are willing to care for you only until you stand between them and what they want, which is in so many cases, war. These governments are personified by two parental figures within Shadowfall's story. With that angle in mind, I think Lucas's death works and serves to drive home that point in a big way. But I still don't really love it. I think the developers knew that they couldn't actually end the game like that though, because, well... You can probably already guess, but we're playing as Echo now, and we're infiltrating a Vectan tower of some kind. As we stealth our way through this area, a press conference from Lady Visari plays in the background as she talks about starting a war with the ISA again. This is sort of a groundbreaking level because it marks the first time in Killzone history that we play opposite of the ISA in a single-player level. And I do really like this level too, even if it is pretty short. We have a voice in our ear walking us through the level, but it isn't revealed who it is. I had a few suspicions while I was playing, wondering if it was Rico or Sevchenko, or maybe even Luger or Haka from the first game. Maybe it was going to be one of those, or maybe it was no one of importance, but it's not revealed who was guiding her through it. I get the distinct idea that this was planned to be the first game in a trilogy, and my totally baseless speculation is that the next one would have had a stronger focus on Echo and possibly reintroduced previous characters, but much older. Her stealth camouflage is a lot of fun to play with as well, so I can see more levels being based around this style of gameplay. Much like Lady Visari is giving her pre-war speech right now, Sinclair is also holding a press conference where he too is giving a pre-war speech. Once we collect our weapon and set up at a vantage point, Echo readies her rifle and...
The Helghast chose to forsake their humanity long ago. They are an aberration. They do not share our values, and they do not deserve our compassion. The belief that we could live beside the Helghast
For Kellen.
was false.
Okay, and that was actually Killzone Shadowfall. We aren't really told what happened after that, but it is implied that her kill shot there did prevent a war from starting. Which doesn't really make a lot of sense, because I think if an enemy operative killed a bunch of soldiers and assassinated a high-ranking military official on a public stage like that, it would guarantee war, but what do I know? The last shot of the game is a portrait of Tyrion, Lady Visari, Sinclair, Echo, and I think Lucas, drawn in bullets. Okay, so I've said what I liked about the story, and I did very much appreciate how it was trying to have a lot of nuance about war and offer various perspectives. With that said, I did go and read some feedback about this game's narrative, and a lot of people thought it made no sense, because the game seems to contradict itself. They were baffled that the Helghast could be painted as both tormented refugees and violent oppressors. It was amusing to see some baffled at the idea that some Helghast citizens could be suffering refugees, while others in higher positions could be oppressive tyrants. It had to be all or nothing. Either every single Helghast are bad guys, or the story contradicts itself. It was just totally silly, and I think it cements what I said about how the point of the game was that the people suffer from the choices of their government. It sounds odd, but I really did read sentiments from people saying the game's plot was inconsistent because sometimes the Helghast were painted as victims and other times as oppressors. Unfortunately, this is a common issue in the real world and comes from an inability to see the people as people separate from the ideals of the government they may not have had much choice in being represented by. Not to mention, the game makes it clear that the Helghast government, although clearly oppressive, still aren't the ones we're fighting. Throughout most of the game, we're fighting Stahl and his terrorist subsect called the Black Hand. The Helgen government publicly disavows this group, even though it's implied they turn a blind eye to their actions. As for the planet Helgen, I read people being confused about its state, because the game claims the Helghast had to relocate, so clearly the world is uninhabitable. So the fact that there's been a group of heavily militarized Helghasts still on the planet means you can still live there, so the relocation was unnecessary, right? No. The planet is inhospitable and literally slowly tearing itself apart. Just because you can walk around and live and breathe there doesn't mean that millions of civilians can live peaceful lives here. I mean, hell, the Helghast that stayed behind are living on catwalks and ships. Sure, they've been constructing them here, but that's been an uphill battle over 20 years in the making with nothing else to do. I'd imagine it was hellish. And even still, at the rate it's falling apart, the planet will have torn itself into an asteroid field within another 100 years. So no, it's not inhabitable, and that's why Stahl needed to eradicate Vecta of human presence, because they can't stay on Helgen. Now, I do not think this game's plot is airtight or anything, and there are some things that clearly don't add up, like the ending assassination somehow preventing a war. Yeah, no. But it's not a good guys versus bad guys story. It's not a moral right versus moral wrong story, and people looking for that are just going to be confused and think the whole thing makes no sense. It's a government versus the people story. The bad guys are the warmongers, and the warmongers live within both factions. The good guys are the peace seekers, and the peace seekers exist on both sides. The victims are those who lose their lives or livelihoods from the actions of the warmongers, and those victims, too, can be found on both sides. And that's the point of Killzone Shadowfall, which I think it's a point that is both very human and antithetical to human instinct at the same time. To seek peace and a thriving society is a very human desire, but to become tribalistic and lump all people behind one banner is also one of the oldest human instincts. From politics to sports, whatever flag your team waves is my enemy if it's not the flag my team flies. Stahl said all Vectans are barbaric and inferior by their biology, and shortly after that, Sinclair claimed that all Helghast are vicious and hateful by their nature. That's why it took Echo and Lucas to look at the other and recognize the lies on both sides. It's about seeing people as people, and not as facets of a faction. I think maybe that's why this one stood out to me so much. It's a very different kind of story, and not one I see very many video games try to tell. Alright, that's enough about the story. Let's talk about some of the collectibles we can find to help the world building in the game. We've seen the series include collectibles before in the form of intel we could collect in Killzone 2, but now collectibles are back again, and there's a lot more of them to find. The most commonplace collectible are audio logs, which are kind of a staple gameplay mechanic, likely because they're fun to find, easy to make, and build the world more. Another thing we can collect are dossiers, and these are really just little info dumps about various locations and characters from the universe. I enjoyed finding these, I thought they were fun. Then there's the news articles you can find that give you an in-universe look at how the media is reacting to various events from the game's story. There's only 9 of these, but they're split up between a Helgen news source and a Vectan one. It's a really neat little addition. Now, I already talked about this a bit earlier, but my favorite collectible are the pages from this in-game comic book called The Shadow. The illustrations are utterly emanating pure style, and it'd make an exceptional standalone comic in its own right. I'm talking about some downright breathtaking artwork here. It seems to be a story about a lost Helghast soldier rushing to warn his comrades of an incoming invasion from an enemy force, presumably the ISA. But during his journey to warn his brothers, he stumbles upon a young flag bearer who helps him continue as he is deeply injured. The two of them end up taking shelter in a bunker to avoid the rain and end up encountering a deranged and mutilated soldier who tries to kill them both. They flee the bunker and destroy it with a grenade, but the boy sinks into a pit of blood and drowns after the flag he was holding onto tears and lets him die. After that, the lone soldier gets engulfed in a smoke grenade and savagely mutilates a group of soldiers who enter the smoke with his knife, assuming them to be enemies, but learns after the smoke clears that they were his own Helghast brothers. After that, the ISA soldiers actually do find him, descend upon him, and kill him. It's a brutal and dark comic, and even now I'm trying to decide if it has any kind of significant meaning or if it's just a cool companion comic made to be something neat to find within the game. There's a few notable things though, like how all of the comic's environment words and in-universe signage are written in the Helgen language, which helps keep that immersive feeling. Also, how the ISA are descending upon the Helghast makes me think this might be some kind of in-universe Helghast take on what the ISA invasion on Helgen from Killzone 2 looked like from their perspective. Like I said, it's seriously brutal, and I can see a lot of different potential meanings to take away from this. The most notable thing to me out of the whole comic, though, is that the 14-year-old flag bearer says it is his greatest honor to carry that flag into battle and that he would die for that honor. And when the time comes, and that flag is the only thing holding him from drowning, the fabric tears loose and drops him to his death. This could be seen as tying into Shadowfall's idea of giving everything to a government that will let you die when the time comes. A flag that represents everything your faction stands for will tear to let you fall before ever saving your life. That's just my take on it though, so you guys can tell me what you thought of this one down in the comments. Now you know I gotta talk a little bit about the multiplayer, and when I say a little bit, I do mean only a little bit, because I didn't really like it. Which is weird, because I enjoyed messing with the Killzone 2 multiplayer, and I loved the Killzone 3 one, even if they were just against bots. I was expecting to at least like this one, but no, I didn't really enjoy it, and it's hard to say why. For one thing, the servers are down, and I had to play against bots again, but that wasn't the issue. Something about all of the changes they made for the gameplay from the third game to this one altered how it plays in multiplayer. The cool cutscenes are gone, there's less maps and gameplay modes than either of the last two games, and all of the vehicle mechanics have just been totally cut. And lastly, it just feels weirdly unresponsive to play. The aiming in these games has always been atrocious, and it's the least offensive in this game that it's ever been, but even still, it feels worse in multiplayer. All of the things that made the single player feel so much smoother to play for me seem to have negatively impacted the multiplayer, and I'm not even really sad the servers weren't up for me to try it because I don't think I'd have had very much fun. We did get a better class customization and weapon modification feature this time, but it wasn't enough to make actually playing through matches compelling for me. This is all mostly subjective, of course, so please take what I'm saying here with a grain of salt. Something that really surprised me about Shadowfall, however, was its music. Every game in the Killzone series previously featured a score composed by Joris Deman, a veteran composer who works with Guerrilla Games frequently. For both Shadowfall and the PS Vita game called Killzone Mercenary, however, he did not return. In Shadowfall's case, he was replaced primarily by two other composers who you may actually have heard of. Music duties for Shadowfall were split between Hollywood composer Tyler Bates and electronics artist Lorne. Unlike previous Killzone OSTs, this one doesn't favor a bombastic orchestral score and chooses instead to lean on more subtle soundscape tracks and tense electronica combat music. From what I read, Tyler Bates focused on the Vector-related missions, and Lorne focused on the Helghast-related ones to ensure the player could feel a difference between when they were surrounded by Vector areas or Helghast ones. And I've gotta say, I think it worked. By Killzone 3, I was a big fan of how Joris Deman was handling the universe's sound, but this direction is so fitting for this game's universe that I can see exactly what they were going for here. The extra bit of effort to make even the musical styles of the two factions seem distinct, even going as far as splitting the work between two different composers to ensure it works, is so admirable to me. And I loved pretty much the whole soundtrack too, so it worked. Now, as I hinted at the start of talking about this game, I've gone a long time being told that Shadowfall was the worst of the series by a long shot. So much to the point where I was bracing myself to deal with how bad it was going to be. I had comments telling me to get ready for disappointment because I was in for it with this one. All I can say is, what the hell? I thought this game was great, and I have no idea what it did to earn this reputation for itself. I've heard from some people that it was pretty buggy on launch, but I mean, it clearly got patched up nicely because I didn't recall encountering a single bug in my entire playthrough. Maybe it was the sour ending, or the weird multiplayer experience? I mean, Sony did end up getting sued for $5 million in a class action lawsuit over deceptive marketing because the multiplayer didn't run at the advertised resolution. That case ended up being dismissed, but it can't have helped people's opinions of the game to see a lawsuit around its marketing. Although the game's critical ratings are honestly still very good, all things considered. Taking a look at the Metacritic shows us a rating of 73, which, while not as high as some of the others in the series, is still pretty good and would be far higher if one bad Polygon review wasn't weighing it down. Most major critic sources gave the game a 7, 8, or 9, with Polygon giving it a very average 5 out of 10 and citing too many shooter cliches as the reason. No, seriously, they gave the game a bad rating because it was too similar to other shooters, and then praised all of the actual objective parts of the game's design. Insane. I personally loved Shadowfall. I hope Sony ports it to PC just so I can play it again in a new way, because honestly, this might not be a popular take, but as someone who had next to no experience with this series when the year started, this one was my favorite. I feel like Shadowfall was the first entry in the franchise that was confidently its own game. The original Killzone felt marred by a plethora of tonal issues and strange gameplay decisions to the point where it often seemed to forget it was even a sci-fi game and acted like a typical old-school World War II game. Killzone 2 seemed to be a lot better about embracing what it was by course-correcting the series, but even then clearly tried to grab elements from other popular games at the time to keep up with the market. Killzone 3 uncorrected Killzone 2's previous course correct and ended up making the atmosphere of the franchise even more uneven and inconsistent, while also clearly making design changes in favor of chasing popular trends in the market at the time. This time, however, everything seemed much more confident and consistent. The world feels rich and real. The universe feels powerful and believable. Whereas previous games seemed to just be making things up as they went along to justify killing enemies from one area to the next, Shadowfall feels like it has an entire world filled with intrigue and lore surrounding you at every given turn. From Vecta City to New Helgen, everywhere you go feels like a real area that exists in a real world. We really see the best world building the series has ever tried to offer in this title, and it's not even close. Killzone Shadowfall feels like the only mainline game in the series that was ready to confidently deliver you an intense, no-holds-barred science fiction war game, and in a lot of ways feels more spiritually like a sequel to Killzone 2 than it does the direct sequel to Killzone 3 that it actually is. Wow, you're still here? Thanks for sticking around for all of that. I actually had to go through a lot to make this video happen, believe it or not. I haven't actually owned a console for a long time being a PC guy, so I had to find a cheap PS4 on Marketplace and go get it, only to find it was mad filthy, so then I cleaned it up. Luckily, it came with a copy of The Last of Us Part 2, which was nice because I could immediately trade that in for store credit at GameStop to buy Shadowfall. Only no GameStop within several hundred miles actually had a copy of Shadowfall. So with a store credit set aside specifically for Shadowfall, and a few months to go before I was planning to actually get to this one, I just waited and checked in with them every so often until eventually I lucked out and grabbed a copy while it was there. Then I had to order a capture card and get all of that set up so I could record my footage, and with all of that done, could finally sit down and play the game for the first time. So I hope you enjoyed this video, the product of that series of events. No, but seriously, I was happy to do it because I've loved making these videos. I did not expect to enjoy these games nearly as much as I have, and being able to share the experience with you guys while I've done it has meant more to me than I know how to say. If you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed yet but have enjoyed this video, then I'd ask that you consider subscribing, and also like the video and leave a comment. Not only do those things seriously help me out with the algorithm, but I also just love seeing what everyone has to say in the comments and interacting with everyone. Members of the channel get access to most of my videos a few days early, as well as tons of hours of various live streams, so if you love the coverage of these older games and want to support that and be part of the community, then consider becoming a member and we'll keep building this together. Thanks again everyone so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video, but until then, that's all I've got for you.